This is Law by Simpsons. Welcome to this video on real property against personal property and what are the differences. We'll also be going through the doctrine of fixtures. So, real property and personal property are two quite related yet different things. Real property, such as your house or your right to a lease, or intangible things such as a right to a lease or an easement, okay, that's real property. Now, personal property is a much bigger category, going from laptops, phones, cars, shoes, TVs, your wallet, pretty much anything physically that you might use every day is most likely personal property if you own it. Now, we'll start off with personal property and different types of personal property. Now, personal property is effectively something that you have a right to. Now, what these are mostly called are chattels. Now, there are two different types of chattels. You can have chattels which are a real chattel, or you can have chattels that are personal. Now, real chattels are a hybrid between personal and real property. So real chattels, for example, would be a leasehold, because that's a right in property, but it's not complete ownership. Now, real chattels are a smaller area of property law. What you'd mostly be focusing on is the difference between the two types of personal chattels. Firstly, being choses in possession, and choses in action. Now, chose in possession we'll start with is pretty much effectively a tangible or physical object, such as my phone or my wallet. Choses in action are intangible things, such as patents, copyrights, deeds. So choses in action are really a right to sue on the basis of whether it being copyright or a patent, yeah. So a chose in action is your right to sue. And that is also considered personal property. It's your property if it is your intellectual if it's your intellectual possession, then that is your property too. Now, moving on from personal property, we can talk about real property. Real property can be broken into two subcategories. These are either corporal hereditaments or incorporeal hereditaments. Now, corporal hereditaments is a right of possession. So this is tangible real property, your right to possess tangible real property, such as your right to live in your house that you own. Incorporeal hereditaments are intangible real property, such as leases or easements. And that's the difference between incorporeal rudiments and corporeal rudiments. Now that all falls under the category of real property. Now, one thing that must be addressed is what are the ramifications of the distinction between real and personal property. Real property can only enforce a contract of land if there's an agreement in writing. Now, going forward in my videos that will be coming soon, the agreement of writing is quite paramount to real property law. So, the effect of this is the effect of the requirement of writing is that a remedy is specific performance. The remedy of specific performance is available for real property, for a contract of real property. Now, personal property the transfer of personal property does not require writing. Therefore, specific performance is not available as a remedy. The only remedy that is available is damages. So in some instances, the property itself would not be recoverable, but the party would be compensated with damages. So that's the distinction between the both. Now we're going to talk about what happens when there's a combination of both. And this is the doctrine of fixtures. Oops, I just realised I'm outside the viewing area. The doctrine of fixtures. So the doctrine of fixtures provides that personal property may become real property if it's annexed or attached to real property. So you could have personal property such as a heating system or an air conditioning unit. Now, if this air conditioning unit is attached, or what we call annexed, to a house, depending on the degree of annexation, it could become real property. So this doctrine resolves disputes contesting title in the absence of an agreement. It applies especially to tax and stamp duty law, where ownership can determine liability for stamp duty and taxpayers. Now, I'm going to do an example in using Simpsons characters. Let's say Police Chief William owns a house. Attached to this house is a washing machine, or inside of this house, should I say. A washing machine, that's the back of it, bolted to a wall. Now it has two bolts, which can be taken off with a wrench. So this washing machine is sold, the house is then sold to Mo, a buyer who provides cash. For the property. Now, in absence of a written contract regarding to the washing machine, what goes to Mo? Just the house? Does the washing machine come with it? That's the question. Now, this almost never happens in real life situations, due to the fact that when you buy a house, generally the terms of the contract are you're either buying the house with or without certain with or without furniture, appliances, fridges, etc. However, in the absence of a written agreement, does the washing machine go to Mo or just the house? So this is where the degree of annexation is examined. So whether or not the washing machine goes to Mo depends on certain things. So first of all, the nature of the chattel must be looked at. A washing machine. The situation between the two parties must be looked at. There's no contractual relationship here. The mode of annexation. Now that's the big one that I'm talking about. So there are other things, but it's the degree of annexation, and in addition to that, the purpose of fixation. Those are the two main things, but there are others. The degree of annexation would be looked at as two bolts bolting the washing machine to the house. Due to the fact that there's only two bolts holding it together, it's unlikely that it's considered a high degree of annexation. This would be different if it was cemented, well, you wouldn't cement a washing machine in, but if it was attached with a greater degree, so if it had 50 bolts and it had been secured there with safety bolts and I think I've chosen a pretty poor example, but if the degree of annexation was more than 2 bolts, let's say, that would be taken into consideration as being more a part of the house. But however, seeing as there's only 2 bolts holding the washing machine in, it's more likely that it's not a part of the house. The second thing that we're going to look at for this problem is the purpose of the fixation. Why did Police Chief Wiggum attach the washing machine? Did he attach it because he intended for the washing machine to become a part of the house to stay there forever? Or did he attach it because it was rattly and he didn't want it to move? Now, this would vary based on circumstances, but let's assume that it was a rattly washing machine and Police Chief Wiggum just didn't want it to move off the wall. Then both the degree of annexation is low and the purpose doesn't support Mo. Therefore, it would be concluded that the washing machine is not a part of the house. It does not become the house. Now, with this same scenario, I just want to do, let's use tiles that were retiled into the bathroom. So let's say that Chief Wiggum tiles his bathroom floor. Now let's look at the degree of annexation. The degree of annexation and the purpose of annexation. The degree, I'm not sure if you know about tile, cement, and the degree is that it's quite high. It's been stuck to the house, so it's quite high. The purpose, whilst we can't speak to Police Chief Wiggum's intention, it can be assumed that when you tile a floor and you sell the house, it wouldn't be reasonably expected that you're going to take the tiles with you. He didn't intend to take the tiles with him. He would have intended when he retiled his bathroom that they stay there for the life of the house. So that's good for Mo. And in absence of a written agreement, the tiles would be a part of the house, therefore become Mo's property. So I hope that helped with your understanding of the difference between personal and real property and the doctrine of fixtures. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.